All right, thank everybody for watching and listening to Straight from the Hip. So today I decided to do something a little different. I decided let's talk about NASCAR, which I know we never talk about on the show because Coach forbade it. So I'm going behind his back to make sure we get some information about NASCAR, because I think what the media and what everybody's trying to paint NASCAR is, they're playing up to the stereotypes of NASCAR as being, quote unquote, a white male Southern sport that have tinges of a little bit of racism in it. So with me, I brought in my good friend, good buddy, car enthusiast, NASCAR enthusiast, Jerry. So, Jerry, say what's going on, everybody.
What's up, everyone? How's everybody doing tonight?
All right. So, Jerry, tell everybody a little bit about your background, because I know I just said you're a car enthusiast and NASCAR enthusiast, but I don't think people realize how deep you are in this. So just give everybody a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about my background. I've worked for Rick Hendrick himself through his car dealerships here in Beaufort. My ties to NASCAR go all the way back to the 80s and 90s, to where we were actual sponsors for drivers throughout the entire years of the 80s and 90s. My ties still continue on. I'm very good friends with a lot of NASCAR drivers. As you can tell, Jason, when you look on my Facebook page, you see me with a lot of drivers throughout different areas. I'm actually good friends with, their families. We talk all the time, whether it's through Twitter, texting, phone calls, or in person. So my knowledge on NASCAR and the history of NASCAR goes way back.
All right, well, good. I mean, so just letting you guys know, for Straight from the Hip, we're getting the pros. We're getting the professionals of the professionals. So we keep an outstanding guest with us. So I want to start off with everybody speaking about the Bubba Wallace thing and the fact of he found the noose in his pit crew shop. And I want to start with Jerry. When you first heard about this incident, what did you think? One, as a NASCAR fan, knowing the hearts of these men, and also just as a regular white American, living day to day.
My reaction when I first heard it was unbelievable. I'm like, okay, what in the hell's going on? That is not like NASCAR. He had the whole line going on, which I applaud. That takes a lot of courage to do. The following week, there was a vehicle out on the track that, stepped up and put Blue Lives Matter as well. Because here we go again, everybody portrays the police as being bad. So they were trying to raise awareness for the Blue Lives Matter. But when I first heard about it, I'm like, yeah, something's not right here. Who could have been? I started digging a little bit deeper. As soon as I started digging a little bit deeper, that's when NASCAR came out and said, hey, the FBI's involved. Come find out, it was there since 2019, and it was actually the pull cord for the garage door.
In the black community, we heard about it. Naturally, we rallied behind, Bubba, but I will say it was a twinge of us that felt like, if people remember the Jussie Smollett situation, it's a good portion of the black community that we felt that kind of way with the Bubba Wallace thing and said, well, hold on, this guy's been respected in the sport for years. People know him. People know what he's, they know what he's about. This isn't the first
time. And
I've
met Bubba Wallace. He's actually very easygoing, laid-back guy, the best person you'll ever meet.
Right.
He loves to cut up. He loves to have fun. And, when this came out, it was actually not Bubba Wallace who found it. It was a crew member.
Okay.
Who immediately went to NASCAR to report it. So Bubba never saw what was going on.
Okay. See, that's educating me, so I didn't know that. So I guess I want to break it to two questions. I know one's going to be tougher, and one's going to be the reality. So the perception here is that, okay, they make this tie to help close and open the gate and et cetera, that resembled close to what a noose probably is, for enough that somebody saw it and reported it. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I guess some people are going to ask, Jerry, is like, well, if it was there for, I guess, 2 to 3 years, how were people in the sport so comfortable with something that kind of looked close and resembled a noose and nobody changed it, took it down or anything to this moment? That's people's first question going to be. Do you have any thought process on how you tie those and what that looks like as well?
Yeah, the way those operate in the NASCAR garage, the bays are real tall. It's not like a normal garage door. The doors are real tall because you got to remember those haulers can back straight up to those doors easily. So they have to have room for everything to going in and going out. And if you go to like any regular automotive shop, whether it's like Walmart or NTB or Kaufman or Firestone, wherever, you'll see that long rope on the door to help you raise it and lower it, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to spend the money to put a garage door open on.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, especially in the shops, you'll put like a little loop at the end to where if your hands are oily, greasy, and all that, you've got something you can grab hold of that door to pull it down.
But I want to speak to what Bubba Wallace said after the fact. So I guess Bubba Wallace still doesn't think that's good enough. He thinks basically he made along the line, said he's been in so many pit crews and et cetera, et cetera. None of the ropes resembled what that rope resembled. Now, I would say, is there a standard way that most people typically loop it, or is it just to the discretion of the person who's just doing it at the time?
It's just a discretion of whoever's doing it. Since it was there since 2019, you got to remember these tracks don't only just run NASCAR races, they hold other events as well. So it could have been a crew member from a different series.
I wanted to spring into the perception of NASCAR, and I wanted you to speak a little bit about the history of NASCAR, and then we can talk about the perception of NASCAR based off that history and kind of where NASCAR is going into the future. So for Jerry, for those who don't know, could you tell us a little bit about how NASCAR or the racing circuit was started, and let's take it up through the times a bit.
Yeah, back in the 40s and 50s, of course, NASCAR was actually formed by moonshiners. So what they would do is they would get these hot rods by cars to where they could outrun the police during their moonshine runs. And that's kind of how it trickled down to racing. They would take those cars on the weekends and race them, and during the week, they would do their moonshine runs.
Wow. Well, okay, hold on then. Why wouldn't the police just go to these tracks and just arrest all of them?
You got to remember, there was no proof.
Because they were faster than the cops.
Because a lot of times what they would do, the moonshine they ran was so potent, you can actually run it as fuel for your car. So if they felt like they were about to get caught, they would dump all the moonshine in their gas tank.
I know NASCAR and most racing has an affinity to be labeled with the South. Is that because that's where the moonshine running was predominantly being done, or is
correct?
Okay.
Yeah, correct. It happened in like Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. That's where prominently took place.
Right. Well, and then I would ask something that you may not know. So when it comes to the moonshining game and running moonshine, were there black drivers involved in that era too as well?
Absolutely. Believe it or not, there is a black driver. I can't remember the year. It was in the 50s or 60s. He won the championship. NASCAR at the time back then, because, again, you had the division between the blacks and whites. Unfortunately.
Right. Segregation was still alive. Yep.
Still alive. And even though NASCAR said, okay, you won the championship, because you're black, you're not getting the trophy and you're not getting the title. Well, now that everything's changed throughout the years, that NASCAR has acknowledged him, but NASCAR finally has admitted he deserves his championship as well as be put in the Hall of Fame.
He started racing in 1952, and, it was like Picasso, like a great artist doing his work. And he was in that car, and he was doing his work. But, he couldn't get the support where other drivers that we were competing against had major sponsorship. He did everything that he did out of his own pocket. And as children, we didn't have that leisure time. We couldn't go to the playground. He said to us, I need you at the garage. I can remember him getting injured, and he'd just take axle grease and put it in the cut and keep working. But he wasn't allowed to race at certain speedways. He had death threats not to come to Atlanta. And Daddy said, look, if I leave in a pine box, that's what I got to do, but I'm going to race. I can remember him racing in Jacksonville, and he beat them all. But they wouldn't drop the checkered flag. And then when they did drop the checkered flag, they had my father in third place. One of the main reasons that they gave was there was a white beauty queen, and they always kissed the driver. He finally got the money. But, of course, the trophy was gone. The fans were gone. The beauty queens were gone.
Did he ever consider not racing anymore?
Never. That was one of my daddy's saying. When it's too tough for everybody else, it's just right for me. Like I can remember one time when we were racing Atlanta 500, and he was sick. He needed an operation. And I said, Daddy, we don't have to race today. He whispered to me and said, lift my legs up and put me in the car. He drove 500 miles that day. He always felt like someday he's going to get his big break. But for 20 years, nobody mentioned Wendell Scott. But he didn't let it drive him crazy. I think that's what made him so great. He chose to be a race car driver, and he was going to race until he couldn't race no more.
Okay. Well, and then so let's talk a little bit about the perception of NASCAR. So when people perceive NASCAR, they think of it as a Southern racing sport. Because even and forgive me, the racetrack they do in France.
The Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, that doesn't have the perception as like racing does here in America. And I think the perception is it's like this kind of a racist underground. And now, I guess my question is it because the Confederate flag was a part of NASCAR later on, or was that always a part of NASCAR from its roots? Like, what did that come along at a later date, or was that always kind of intermingled in there with it?
It came at a later date, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Exactly when, I'm not sure. I want to say in the 60s is when it started becoming part of the sport. And again, you got to remember back then it was still full of rednecks. Even through 60s, 70s, and early 80s, it was still a redneck sport, unfortunately.
Well, were they using the Confederate flag to be divisive, or were they using it because they were just Southern heritage? What things have NASCAR – what is NASCAR doing to be more diverse and more involved?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, the banning of the Confederate flag. As any racer knows, it's a material object. If you're a true fan of NASCAR, you don't care about flag. Like me personally, I don't give a rat's ass one way or another. I'm there for the entertainment, for the thrill, and I hate to say it, maybe a fight at the end, because tempers flare.
Right.
So throughout the years, NASCAR has really been pushing, having other races come in to the sport. Good example, you've got Daniel Suarez. He drives for Joe Gibbs Racing. He's from Mexico. So we have a Latino driver. We have Bubba Wallace. He's in the Cup Series. There's another driver in the Truck Series. He's black. He's also a service member. And the thing is, there's becoming more and more blacks, which I like, coming into the sport. You see them as crew members, officials, more drivers starting to come up. So the doors opened up.
Now, I know from what I was reading, I guess NASCAR had accepted, and they do things for Pride Week. I know NASCAR had done outreach programs to get more minorities and women involved in the sport.
So 20 plus years, they've been, turning the sport around.
Absolutely. And so that's before our NFLs. That's before a lot of the other leagues. Why do you think the perception, because outside of the rebel flag, which I know will throw people off, NASCAR really doesn't have any incidents of any racial insensitivity. So is it just because of the rebel flag, literally? Or what? Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out why do we feel, why is that ingrained in my mind when I first went there?
That's kind of a hard question to answer, unfortunately. Right now, I think with everything going on, the racial tension going on, I think has a lot to do with it, unfortunately. And again, goes back to the Confederate flag. You've got the old school people that's what they live by.
Right.
They don't look at like slavery or anything. They just look at that as a heritage pride thing.
Right. And I think, Jerry, you know, to kind of sum it up, you told me a story yesterday when I asked you to come. Like, you know, I was asking you to do this with me, and I think this is a story I want everybody to kind of take with them and kind of, because I know people are gonna roll their eyes when they say, "Well, how do they not understand the Confederate flag is?" Again, when he says it's a part of heritage and it's not a malicious intent, Jerry told me how that Richard Petty is actually the
owner.
I don't know what it's called. What is it called? The owner?
Yeah, he's the car owner.
Yeah. So Jerry had let me know that, like, yeah, Richard Petty got a little bit of heat because in the 70s and 80s, he would win a race and put the rebel flag on and would ride with that. And the point I'm trying to make is, why would a guy that, if he was racist or had that intent, be the owner? And I hate to use the word owner, but be in business and working with the black racer of NASCAR. He could have chose any racer he wanted to be in his crew. Any racer, any driver he wanted to be, he chose Bubba Wallace. So I think if that doesn't show that some people just, that Confederate flag is more about them, for about meaning the South and history, less about slavery or racial intent. I don't know if that explains that more than anything, that this gentleman as an owner decided, hey, out of all the drivers I can get, I want this guy. And I
as well as having crew members that are black too. So I mean, that tells you right there.
Right.
You know, if NASCAR was that big of a racist, they wouldn't have any black people involved in it. Like I said, you've got track officials that are black, you have crew members, and you have drivers. If you think about, you know, if this happened in any other sport, how long would it take for them to investigate?
Right. Absolutely.
NASCAR's like, oh, hell no, we want answers now.
Right. Absolutely.
But again, any other sport, football, baseball, hockey, soccer, you know, the owners will have to get involved. Then they will have to discuss it, try to find security cameras, then get the government involved. NASCAR's like, hey, time out.
Well, you've got the first step. The other sports will first try to cover it up. And then they would get blasted on the media. And then they would go, oh, yeah, we're investigating. Like, Jerry, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and talking to us. Like I said, straight from the hip, we call ourselves infotainment. We want to be informational, but also entertaining. And Jerry's been with us since the beginning, riding with us. But also, I wanted to get somebody with knowledge on the subject matter, because myself, Coach, and Travis aren't the most knowledgeable with this, but you are. And I definitely want to have you back on the show sometimes, and we could talk about this stuff and, you know, express the other side, because people don't get the other side. They're getting fed one narrative. And one narrative.
They only get the news side. They only get the media side.
Absolutely. So, Jerry, I really, really appreciate it, man. I really thank you for doing this for us. And
not a problem.
If you ever need anything from us from Straight from the Hip, let us know. Anybody you want to shout out, or anybody, you know, anything like that?
All I can say is thank God Boo's not on.
Oh, my God. I mean, yeah. I'd have to, my eyes aren't watering because I don't have to look at that Vanderbilt jersey. So,
oh, I know.
I'm feeling a lot better today.
I'm tempted to sneak over his house and quote unquote remove that from his wall.
All right, now, this is Straight from the Hip. If you know anything about me, you know I'm just a regular fashionista. So I know you see this nice, beautiful shirt I got on. I brought that from the Straight from the Hip store with Teespring. Guys, go on down there, check it out. We are finally selling merchandise. We got shirts, tank tops, the whole 9 yards. Heck, we even got black man pillows, black man socks. You want to go to the beach this weekend? Take a black man towel with you. Please, look at this adorable face. You think she will lie to you? She's telling you, look how comfortable she looks in that picture. But please, check out our merch store, support us, join us, become part of the Straight from the Hip crew and nation. We're building something great here, and now you can get beautiful shirts to show us that you're part of the crew. And I can't wait to be at the beach with my black man towel.